Hi everyone, welcome to next episode. This one will be rather short, but this is just another iteration of our notification system. In the next episodes, we'll create proper controllers that actually save the data, as well as create some tests to make sure that our system is truly working. But for now, we just want to make sure that we can build this feature as soon as possible. So what we want to do today is basically create an ignore system. So let's say you have a discussion that you're no longer interested in following. So you can, click on a drop-down somewhere and click mute. And this way you wouldn't get any more notifications from this resource. So how do we make it work? It's quite simple. First of all, we do need to create a model. We can call it notification unsubscribes. Subscribe. Let's go with notification unsubscribe. I will also create a migration and a factory. All right. So let us go into this migration. And here we'll basically, we won't have a lot, but we just want to have a foreign key to our user because that's the only person in our system that can get notifications. We want to get unsigned small integer for our model type. And we want to get foreign ID for our model ID. And we can remove the doc blocks. All right, so now we can just migrate the database. And what we want to do is basically extend our getNotificationChannels method. So it would return an empty array when there is an unsubscribe saved to the database. So we can start with defining the relationship. So a user has many notification unsubscribe. And now, since we'll be saving model in our unsubscribes table, we should probably accept a model here. And let's make it nullable. So if we do have a model and this unsubscribes where that's it, we'll return an empty array. However, this is kind of long, so we can probably extract this to a separate method. So how about we create is subscribed to. Here we'll pass the model. And we'll basically return the negation of this query. And let me just format this. Okay, so now if there is a model and our user is not subscribed to it, we'll return an empty array, which will basically, not send the notification at all. Let's add a return type here. And what we can do now is we could create a trait that in the models directory that would allow us to unsubscribe from any model. So let's call it can be unsubscribed from. This will be a simple trait. And this will basically return unsubscribes function. And this will be a morph many. So we'll have notification on subscribe class. Then we have this primary key. Get. I always forget that as well. This get key. All right, so now we can add it to our discussion. And let me quickly test if it works. So our user, it has unsubscribes. We can create a new unsubscribe with model ID 1 and model type set to 1 as well. Oh, yeah, we should add an empty guarded here as well as here. Let us retry that. And now if we get our first discussion, we should also get I think discussion was, yeah, it was 2. It wasn't 1. So model type should be 2 here. And now, oh, come on. Okay. So yeah, going with defaults apparently was a better choice. So let us add a return type here. And now we can adjust our notification class. So here, we would, also want to pass the discussion as a second argument. And now let us check if it works. So user first, get notification channels. The notification type was up enums new discussion comment. Notification type. Okay, that's the first argument. Then we have the model. So this would be our discussion first. And it returns an empty array. If we do comment out our code, it returns, the default array or the one that we have specified. Now, if we, find this for different discussion that's not muted, it would return the normal array as well. So that is pretty cool. Okay, I wanted to end this episode at this moment, but I think we could, just go one step more and create a controller to actually save the data. Okay, so here we can see that our controller was created. What we actually do is update the controllers tab to not include the controller because I removed mine. And I just never used that the default things provided by the base controller that Laravel uses, so we can just skip it. Okay, so let's create the free methods. And we are doing free because if the user, if they want to resubscribe to a resource, they can just delete the resource itself. So here we would get three things, right? We would get a request. We would get an enum that represents our resource that we'll create in a second. We can call it notificable type, and we can pass the ID of a resource. So let me quickly create this enum here. So here we could do two things, basically. We could have a string-based enum that would return a model for us. And why do we want that? Because we want to have like a reusable controller that we can use for any type of unsubscribes. We don't really want to, create an discussion unsubscribe controller and then comment unsubscribe controller. We want to have everything in one place. So if we were to go here and create our routes, notification unsubscribes, then we would have our type, and then we would have our ID. And this would map to notification unsubscribe controller. And we would have one for delete and one for storing. Okay. So Laravel will automatically resolve an enum for us when it's passed like this, and the name of the variable is the same. So you could create a post or a get to this route using notification unsubscribes, and then we would have our enum, which we are setting as discussion, and then we pass the ID. So this way we have a reusable controller that we can always use for any adding any unsubscribes. Okay, so here we can add a public function called model that will return a string because it will return the name of the model. And I will just use a match with this. So they should really fix that bug in PHP Storm. Whenever you autocomplete in methods in enums, it will just replace your call with self. I'm pretty sure I talked about this already. Okay, so except for getting the model, we should also have a function that would resolve our model. And here we would get an ID. This will return a model or an empty value. And we can just do something like app this model find ID. And this will return a model for us. So now here, what we can do is we can just defer to type, resolve model, and we can pass the ID. And at this point, it's pretty simple, right? Because we just need to return a response, and this could be a resource, so it's more reusable. We can call it unsubscribed, and we could call request user is subscribed and then pass the model. and just negate that. Here in the store, we would just, we could do like model unsubscribes, update or create, and then we can pass the user ID. And we could just pass unsubscribe equals to true. And here we would just find unsubscribes where user ID is request user ID, and then delete it. And then again, we can return unsubscribed, which is false at this point. We can add our return types everywhere. And, there is obviously one big problem with this code. This is not a huge deal for this, but it's always better to protect against stuff like that. Here, our user could pass any viable model, which can be resolved by the notificable. I really need to learn how to pronounce this words, Jesus. But so they could pass any model, and we would just store this entry in the database, which wouldn't really affect it since we wouldn't be sending the user the notification for this resource. But we don't really want to have any dead records in our database. So this is a great place to introduce policies. We could just call a gate, and not this gate. I think it's this one. And call authorize, access, and then pass the model. So now what we need to do is obviously create this gate, make this policy for our model. So we can do something like that. And now we can go to discussion policy, which was created for us. We can remove all this junk and create an access method here. And here we could define the access. So, I don't know that this doesn't make a lot of sense. This check doesn't make a lot of sense because it's not really, something that you would have here in like the real app. You would probably check if this user is part of this discussion. So like if they are added, if they are either owner or they were added as a participant. But for this episode, I'm pretty sure that we can handle this. And like this is the default way that Laravel recommends to do this. I prefer to do something different. I would check the negation. So if user ID is different than discussion user ID, then we wouldn't just return a Boolean. We would return this deny. And you can create a nice message here. And here you can just allow for the authorization. And this will return a response. I'm pretty sure that, it's this one. So what's nice about this is that it will, return it straight to the user. So you do not have to handle this in the controller by checking, if gate allows to access the model, then, return, response, whatever. You don't have to do this anymore. Now it's all handled out of the box. Okay, so we can fire a postman and see if this is working. Okay, so here we can make a call to our service. Is it API? I'm not sure. Let me check. It's not. Notification, unsubscribes, discussion 1. And I will do a dirty trick because we do not have a proper auth system. I will just log in as first user. So if we send this request, we'll get a forbidden response. Because our gate didn't pass, and maybe access model discussion policy, it's different. I know what it is. Yeah, our discussion do not have the user ID field, so let me quickly change this. And roll back the migrations. And now let's migrate it again. Okay. So now we do need to create a new discussion. I will create one with user ID of 1 and one with user ID of 2, so we can test this. So now if we send this again, and if we restore our call to login as the first user, I just moved this call here to the controller because it wasn't being executed in the routes file. And it appears that we did a typo. It should be subscribed to. And now if we call this again, we'll say that we are not unsubscribed. However, if we make a post request here, oh, come on. Okay, let me just paste it to our API folder. API routes file. Okay, so what I end up doing is just, I'm calling the auth here because on Octane it's like caching the request or something and it's not letting me through. So this is our quick workaround. We'll just create tests or set up the auth for the next episode. So don't worry about this. I know that this isn't ideal, but let's just ship this feature. So here for the get, we're getting false. Now, if we send a post request, we'll get true, and this will always be true. And if we set a delete, we'll get false here, which will, work with our get again. So let me just remove this ugly hack that we just introduced. Let's remove it from here as well. And that's basically it for this episode. In the next episode, we'll try and clean this mess up because, there is only so long that we can go without auth and proper tests. So I'm hoping to see you in the next episode, and take care of you and take care. Bye, guys.